Welcome back to another episode of Rob Sports Center. Man, as you can see by the title, today I'm going to be addressing the Aaron Rodgers situation signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know it's been this was the biggest thing going into the offseason was where was Aaron Rodgers going to end up at? You know, there was rumors that some people might have thought he was going to re-sign with the Jets. Some people might have thought that he was going to end up going to the Minnesota Vikings. And the Aaron Rodgers situation, to me, it made more sense of where can I win now in terms of a team wanting to take on Rodgers with him being, 41 years old. He's getting up there in age, but we still know, even from watching these clips of him in minicamp, man, Rodgers still looks darn good. But the thing about it, too, is I want people to understand that when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, it's not just the physical attributes. Obviously, you still have to be able to do the things that you could once do to be successful, especially in the National Football League, because the guys are so much more talented. Guys are so much more athletic. So the things that these guys can do, you have to be able to combat that with being able to do the things that you've been able to do throughout your whole career to get you to this point. In terms of the mobility, can you still maneuver? Can you still extend plays? Can you still get out the pocket and scramble for first downs and got to have a situation? So all of those things are important, but the biggest thing is this. Aaron Rodgers is the last of a dying breed. And let me tell y'all what I mean by when I say that. So when I say the last of a dying breed, when you look around the NFL now and you kind of look at the scope of the game and the direction of the game, we were so accustomed to the past, seeing the guys like, Joe Montana, Steve Young, Dan Marino, guys who were like, actual Troy Aikman, who were field generals, guys that when they come to the line of scrimmage, they're looking and trying to pre-read defenses to figure out, okay, what coverage are they in? If we know what coverage they're in, we know how to beat these coverages, studying film to see the tendencies that these play. Okay, I got this corner out here. He's aggressive. I know he's gonna bite for double moves, so at some point we're gonna draw a play up to try to capitalize off of that. I know that these safeties, they're aggressive. If they play in a cover four, they're trying to come and be a part of the run and stop the run. So now we got play action shots. So just being able to study film and to be able to dissect those things and to be able to prepare in that manner and go out there and execute. Those are things that we don't really, we don't see anymore. When you look at the Aaron Rodgers era, you look at the Drew Breeses, the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings, all these guys that can do these things that I just named previously about, the guys from the past. So he's the last of that. You don't really see a lot of that. And I think that's what's kind of leading to, like Brady said, a lot of the mediocrity in the NFL or football period, especially in the NFL, because the talent, you can get away with lacking certain things in high school and college because the talent gap is pretty big from the best players to the other guys, right? When you get to NFL, the talent gap is not that big. I'm going to be completely honest with you. It's not. Everything is all about preparation, right? So you got a lot of these quarterbacks that may have a strong arm. You got a lot of these quarterbacks that may be mobile, and they can capitalize off of that in high school. They can capitalize off of that in college. Now when they get to the NFL, they're going up against elite level defensive coordinators that see what you're not good at and exploit that. Now we're going to see if you're going to be able to combat that and make the adjustments and get better at what they saying that you're not good at. Prime example, we're going to use Lamar Jackson. My biggest knock for Lamar Jackson was that he was an athlete playing quarterback, right? That was the biggest knock about him. You look at Lamar Jackson now, you look at some games, you be like, man, hey, this man can throw the ball. Same thing about Jaden Daniels. I said the same thing about him, athlete playing quarterback. And you look at how he was able to develop and execute and make the adjustments, be able to come in and not only beat you with his legs, but beat you in the pocket if need be. So those are the things that I feel like the game is lacking. So with a guy like Aaron Rodgers possesses all those things. For one, he got the understanding of the game. We're dealing with a two-time MVP. We're dealing with a guy who has performed at the highest level and dominated years after years after years after years after years after years. Now, I don't want to hear nobody say, oh, well, the last time he won a Super Bowl was whatever year that was, 2011? I mean, okay, yeah. But at the same time, was his team having a fighting chance every year? Absolutely. And he was just running up on teams that might have been a little bit better, might have been a little bit more prepared, So that does happen, but that doesn't take away from the dominance that we know of Aaron Rodgers. Like Stephen A. said, that's that bad man. I've seen Aaron Rodgers do some things over the years, man, like that you just be like, man, this dude right here is just on a whole different level. So bringing in a guy like that is very vital, especially if you're in a Pittsburgh Steelers situation, right? You're looking at it from the perspective of saying, okay, we got Will Howard. Is Will Howard really going to be effective right now? Right? Because guess what? He benefited from being around a lot of good talent at Ohio State and a good coach. right? So are we expecting him to come in and have the same level of success that he had in college? Probably not, right? So why would we feed him to the wolves? Why would we put him out there? And if it's question marks, do we believe? Because if anything, that's only going to hurt his career. That's only going to destroy his confidence. And that's when you're going to deal with the Bryce Young situations and, being benched 3 or 4 games into a season just because you wasn't properly developed. And you really didn't have to, being that your coach was that good and the team, your supporting cast. But with a guy like Aaron Rodgers, you can take the most mediocre rosters and put a quarterback like that on there, and he's gonna succeed. He's gonna thrive, right? I was looking at an interview with Belichick. He was on Pat McAfee, and they was talking about the term game manager, and they was like how that term is being used to spite certain guys. Oh, he's a game manager. He's not a real quarterback. Well, Belichick made a good point. If you think about it, game manager is not a bad quarterback, right? You're looking at a guy who manages the clock, doesn't make risky decisions. Now, that can hurt you and it can benefit you. It can hurt you because you don't take a lot of shots downfield, so the opportunity of explosive plays are minimized. But at the same time, the opportunities of turnovers are minimized. You see what I'm saying? So every game, the situation probably isn't going to always be the same. There's going to be games you got to come out and you might got to throw for 300 or 400 yards for y'all to win this game, right? There's going to be games where all you got to do is come out and throw for 100 yards, 150 yards, rely on your running game and rely on your defense, and y'all come out victorious. So it might not always be pretty, but the thing about the greats like Aaron Rodgers, Brady, Mahomes, and all those guys is that they figure out what they need to do to win that particular game. Right. And that's what you're asking for. So when you bring in a quarterback with the knowledge, and I'm not saying veteran, I'm talking about the knowledge. He's a veteran on top of that, but I'm talking about because you got guys that's been around the league and they still can't perform up to high standards. Right. So we're not going to just use the term veteran, but the knowledge and IQ for the game is going to advance a team. So that's the same thing when you look at Pittsburgh. So we're going to talk about we're going to look at Pittsburgh's 2024, just kind of like a little brief summary on them. So in 2024 NFL season, the Pittsburgh Steelers finished with a 10-7 record, securing the second spot in the AFC North and earning the 6th seed in the AFC. They were defeated by the Baltimore Ravens in the wild card round of the playoffs, 28-14. Overall record from last year was 10-7. The AFC North standings, they were second place. The AFC seed, they were 6th. Playoff result, like I say, lost to the Baltimore Ravens in the wild card round. Offensive rankings, 23rd in yards per game. They're gonna have to get that up. Defensive ranking, 12th in yards allowed per game. So like I said, you got a pretty decent defense for the most part, and you added some other pieces. So it's just about putting them together. And on points per game, they averaged 22.4. So the thing is this, you look at what they were able to do bouncing between quarterbacks. You look at how the season started off with Justin Fields, and you look at how things eventually materialized with Russell Wilson, right? So I know there were things that the Pittsburgh struggled with, which was offensive line play, blocking, holding up in pass and gotta have it pass situations, consistently being able to establish a run game to take some of the pressure off of your quarterback. So there were things that they have to get better at, and those are going to be things that also, when you're bringing in a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, he can find ways to maneuver around it. So I was breaking down film from the game against the first game of the season against the 49ers from this past season. And it was like a 3rd and 8 play where he threw a completion to Garrett Wilson. So on that play, the 49ers were crowding line of scrimmage. Pretty much was in a double mug look, had a guy on the center, on either side of the center. They sent pressure at him. But guess what? When you're dealing with a veteran presence like Aaron Rodgers, guess what he's going to do? I identify that they're trying to send a blitz, right? So guess what? If I identify that, let me max protect. Let me say, hey, running back, you ain't going to go for no route. I need you to stay and protect. Tight end, either don't go for a route and block, or if you feel that you can chip them effectively and it's not going to, cause any back blow on our end, chip them and get off of your route. Right. But Aaron Rodgers already knew that. So he already had the route of where he wanted to go, being able to identify that. Right. Because you're looking at an open field or you're looking at a closed field. That means a 2 high or single high. Right. So you know that 9 times out of 10, if it's a single high, it's probably going to be cover 1. Right. And if it's cover 1, you know that you have man on man. Right, in a blitz situation. So that means there's no over-the-top help, especially the route concepts that they was running. And if you got a cat that's on the outside, I'm going to use Nick Saban terms. If you got a cat that's on the outside, like Garrett Wilson, that's matched up on the cat on the defensive side that they're better in, why would you not take that? But an inexperienced quarterback or a quarterback that doesn't have that level of IQ, they wouldn't be able to pick up on that. And guess what? They would have went from a 3rd and 8 to a potential 4th and, 15 or 20 or even worse, a strip sack, So those are the things that Aaron Rodgers brings to the table. I know that we're looking at the last few years. You're looking at the last season in Green Bay, didn't go as planned. You're looking at with the Jets, first year, he tears his Achilles, come back next year. They didn't really go as planned, but I don't necessarily look at that from an Aaron Rodgers standpoint. I think that the New York Jets problem is much bigger than Aaron Rodgers. You know what I mean? And the same problem that they were having, they're probably going to have this year, even though they got Aaron Glenn. He might come in and be able to shift the culture to a degree and create a more winning atmosphere. That's unknown, but that's why I say that to say it wasn't just Aaron Rodgers' fault the way things went. And you look at they end up firing Robert Saleh, the head coach. So just kind of think about that. But you're coming into a team that already has a veteran culture, that already has a winning culture with Mike Tomlin and what he's done, and you combine that with a guy with the understanding of the game of Aaron Rodgers. Man, I do believe they're going to be a threat. Now, granted, like I say, there are going to be some things they're going to have to clean up offensive wise. They're going to have to kind of get a little bit more efficient with pass blocking. They probably going to have to be able to consistently run the ball to take some of the pressure off of Aaron Rodgers to where he doesn't have to feel like he has to come out there every game and throw for 300 or 400 yards to win a freaking football game. So there's going to be things like that. And then you got to think about Cincinnati kind of had an off year in terms of being, hurt on defense. So they weren't really as competitive as they should have been. So you got to think that they're probably going to rectify some of those problems. So their division isn't getting any easier as it is. They always play in a tough division, but bringing in that veteran presence, bringing in a quarterback with the knowledge and understanding of the game like Aaron Rodgers, I just think that that's a mutually beneficial thing, in terms of playing now and in terms of being able to help Will Howard, who is the future, to develop. That was the biggest thing with Aaron Rodgers for me, is that I don't doubt that Aaron Rodgers can still play at a high level. It's 32 teams in the NFL, right? I can probably name 5 quarterbacks that I believe right now, off the top of my head, is better than Aaron Rodgers. Right? I can probably name 5. And I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you probably know some of the 5 that I can name just easily. That's better than him. So he's still better than half of the quarterbacks, even at his older age. So, to me, that was a no-brainer situation. And then you get a guy that can help develop Will Howard. He can see the approach that goes into the game. He can see the work ethic. He can see all of those things. He's watching it from the sideline now. That way, if Aaron Rodgers, who knows, he might play 1 year, he might play 2 years. So by the time that he's over, now the keys are given from Aaron Rodgers to Will Howard, so it helps them out in the future. So, I'm not mad at the pickup for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I said, man, they are one of the few teams. Minnesota was another one that he was talking about going to that actually has the potential to win now, right? And then it's equally beneficial because even if he would have went to the Vikings, just like I just stated here previously, you still got a young bull in J.J. McCarthy, just like what you got in Pittsburgh with Will Howard. So they still would have been able to sit behind one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game, one of the greatest throwers of the ball, one of the greatest minds of the game, and be able to soak up as much knowledge from that as they can. So, man, that's my take on it. If you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, man, or if you're just a football fan, period, you ain't got to be a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. If you're watching this video, let me know in the comments what y'all think about it. Do y'all agree with it, or do y'all think that, they should have threw the rookie out there to the Wolves? Let me know how successful y'all think that the Steelers are going to be this year. But, man, that's it for this video. If you did enjoy this video, do me a big favor, man. Smash that thumbs up button. Also, if you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe. And when you subscribe, click that post notification bell where you be notified every time I upload. And I'll see y'all in the next video.